Do you feel like your own worst enemy? Battling internal resistance, negative emotions, and anxieties that prevent you from living the life you really want. Hi, I'm Ryan Fowler, and the truth is, most of us have more than enough potential to live successful and happy lives. But our brain, which evolved for ancient hunter gatherer tribes rather than modern society, it holds many of us back. Well, what if we could change our mind rapidly and permanently at a deep level to work for us instead of against us? In this video, we examine the hard science to discover precise steps to activate our brain's neuroplasticity. That's its ability to rewire itself at a supercharged level for permanent, substantial benefit in a single sitting. Conventional psychotherapy falls short with outdated beliefs and techniques. They use neuroplasticity very inefficiently at best. Are you ready to permanently overcome challenges? Let's unlock your true potential together. The good news is you can use these science-based techniques today for free to shape your mind for success in my online community, Mind Chrysalis, on the Skool.com platform. Imagine the impact on your life years from now if you permanently crush your procrastination and subconscious limiting beliefs now. How much farther would you be ahead? Are you ready to break free? Well, join us now. Just click the link below, and once you've been accepted in the community, click on the classroom button in the upper left. Take the free Subconscious Optimization 101 course, a 6-part course, all for free. Get started today on your journey towards mastering your mind at a deep level. So this video today is the first of a 4-part series. Later, we examine how specialized hypnosis techniques facilitate SuperNeuroplasticity for the most rapid and profound rewiring, as well as a practical application of the science we discussed today. Later on, we also discuss specific case studies that show real, rapid, massive results that my clients have experienced. So let's dive into the hard science now. We'll be analyzing a podcast by Dr. Andrew Huberman, Stanford neuroscience professor, where he goes into the specific steps necessary to place our brains into a supercharged neuroplastic state. We'll be focusing on the most important highlights of his podcast, but if you'd like to watch it all, the link is in the description below. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that Dr. Huberman's going to discuss, he's going to dispel this myth about neuroplasticity. It is not an automatic thing. You actually have to follow certain protocols to get your brain in a neuroplastic state. So let's get started with his first comment from his presentation I want to highlight.
One of the biggest lies in the universe that seems quite prominent right now is that every experience you have changes your brain. People love to say this. They love to say, your brain is going to be different after this lecture, or your brain is going to be different after today's class than it was 2 days ago. And that's absolutely not true. The nervous system doesn't just change because you experience something, unless you're a very young child. The nervous system changes when certain neurochemicals are released and allow whatever neurons are active in the period in which those chemicals are swimming around to strengthen or weaken the connections of those neurons.
Okay, so we're going to go to specific highlights of this presentation that actually cover what neurochemicals are released, how to release it, what the protocol is, what are the specific conditions that must be met for neuroplasticity, but it's not an automatic thing. So if you're going to some sort of life coach or counselor or therapist, again, I'm not a medical practitioner of any sort, licensed therapist, etc. But if they're trying to change how you feel, what you believe, something in your core that's causing anxiety, depression, or something else, limiting beliefs, whatever, you actually need to change your brain. So ask yourself, are they following the protocols that we're going to discuss herein? Are they actually getting your brain in a certain state so that neuroplasticity can be achieved? Because the truth is, once you hit about age 25, and even really by age 14, 15, but especially when you hit 25, your brain's no longer automatically neuroplastic. It's just not. You have to follow and make sure these certain conditions are met to get into a neuroplastic state. And when you do it at a very high degree, your brain becomes very neuroplastic. We call that superneuroplasticity, which we'll get more into in the next chapter, but he's going to be talking about it now, how you can get massive rewiring, massive changes. You'll see. This is good stuff. And so now Dr. Huberman talks about the first step, or the first thing that must be present to get started with neuroplasticity. Here we go.
But the first step in neuroplasticity is recognizing that you want to change something. And you should immediately say, well, kids don't go into school and say, oh, I want to learn language, or I want to learn social interactions. And that's the beauty of childhood. The whole brain has this switch flipped that is making change possible. But after that, we have to be deliberate. We have to know what it is exactly that we want to change.
Okay, so this is very important. Especially when you're rewiring the subconscious mind, you have to know what in your subconscious needs to be rewired. A lot of, we'll get into later, especially in part 2 of this series, how hypnosis can induce a greatly accelerated neuroplastic state. I'd say one of the big shortcomings of a lot of hypnotists, if they don't spend enough time getting the awareness of exactly what needs to be changed in great detail. The more detail you have, the more you know about what needs to be changed, the bigger the change will be. But it all begins with this awareness. And because things are in your subconscious, that's where 95% of the action takes place, by the way. That's well established in science. You can just, for any of you who doubt that, just Google what percent of our behavior is subconscious. It'll come up 95%. Most will say 95%. Well, we got to do some digging into our subconscious to figure out, to get the awareness of what exactly needs to change, to get the desired change in behavior and all of that. And a lot of hypnotists or others who are actually using these neuroplastic methods don't spend enough time on that. If you go to the free program on the mindcrystalschool.com platform, you're going to see we actually do a lot of prep work so that you actually find out and connect to what is in your subconscious that's holding you back. So that's the first condition. Become aware of what needs to actually change. Recognize it. We'll keep going.
So I'll repeat that. There are specific chemicals that when we are consciously aware of a change we want to make, or even just that we want to make some change, chemicals are released in the brain that allow us the opportunity to make those changes. Now, there are specific protocols that science tells us we have to follow if we want those changes to occur. But that self-recognition is not a kind of murky concept. What it is it's our forebrain, in particular our prefrontal cortex, signaling the rest of our nervous system that something that we're about to do, hear, feel, or experience is worth paying attention to. So we'll pause.
Okay, so he's going to dive into what these steps are and what the neurochemicals, like I said, this is hard science we're getting into. He just kind of gave us a hint when he talked about paying attention. So, because that actually is one of the steps, but he's going to elaborate in more detail. So let's go to the next clip. There are specific things you have to do, though. That is the point he's making here.
The important thing to understand is that if we want something to change, we really need to bring an immense amount of attention to whatever it is that we want to change. This is very much linked to the statement I made earlier about it all starts with an awareness. Now,
okay, we have awareness, recognition of what needs to change, and then intense, not just passive or a little bit, but intense attention. As we go through this, you're going to see that to get the really big change, which is what we do, we're focused on big change, permanent change, boom, like that, very rapidly, very quickly. It's going to be an intense attention, alertness, emotional experience to get the big change. We'll keep going.
The experiences that you pay super careful attention to are what open up plasticity, and it opens up plasticity to that specific experience. So the question then is why? And Merzenich and his graduate students and postdocs went on to address this question of why, and it turns out the answer is a very straightforward neurochemical answer. And inside of that answer is the opportunity for any of us to change our brain at any point throughout our lifespan, essentially for anything that we want to learn. That could be subtracting an emotion.
Okay, that's huge. Subtracting an emotion. That's one of the big things that we do with our process. Let's say you have an anxiety in a certain situation. Let's say you have a fear of failure, or you're procrastinating because you have some internal resistance, a limiting belief. These are all feelings, emotions, affects, call it what you may. You can literally go in and subtract that. So next time you come in this situation, that fear, that anxiety, whatever resistance, whatever holding you back, it's just gone. So think about that. This is a big key to unlocking your potential. He's going to say some of the more other things you can do with neuroplasticity, but I think you're starting to see, especially if you can just do this in one sitting, which you will later say you can, I think you're starting to see the potential and how powerful this can be. You rewire any part of your brain that's holding you back or not serving you. Here we go. There's more
from an experience we've had. It could be building a greater range of emotion. It could be learning new information, like learning a new language. It could be
accelerated learning,
learning new motor skill, like dance or sport, or it could be some combination of cognitive motor. So for instance,
okay, so he keeps talking about these neurochemicals that should be released. Let's start exploring that and seeing what that is about.
When we pay careful attention, there are two neurochemicals, neuromodulators as they're called, that are released from multiple sites in our brain that highlight the neural circuits that stand a chance of changing. Now, it's not necessarily the case that they're going to change, but it's the first gate that has to open in order for change to occur. And the first neurochemical is epinephrine, also adrenaline. We call it adrenaline when it's released from the adrenal glands above our kidneys. That's in the body. We call it epinephrine in the brain, but they are chemically identical substances.
Okay, so epinephrine can be caused, it's released through a good night's sleep, cup of coffee, but there is actually a way to release it in a much greater amount for much greater neuroplasticity. But you're going to have acetylcholine, which is tied to focusing on the part of your brain that needs to change, but also you need epinephrine release. So we're going to skip to a click next, which talks about certain emotions, which will actually release quite a bit of epinephrine when combined with that acetylcholine, is really going to put you in a very accelerated neuroplastic state. And then later he's going to talk about the magnitude of the change you can get. This is not just a little bit of change. This is a lot of change in one sitting. You'll see.
Epinephrine is a chemical, and your brain does not distinguish between doing things out of love or hate, anger or fear. It really doesn't. All of those promote autonomic arousal and the release of epinephrine. So I think.
Okay, so the most massive changes, they're going to be intense because they are going to involve this emotionality, whether it's strong anger, love, hate, just like he said. It's going to be intense attention. You're going to be focusing on something in you. You have created awareness that you need to change. You're starting to see everything fall together. When you do this, follow these protocols, you're creating a neuroplastic state, and then you can actually tell your brain to change. There's different ways you do that. So we're going to cover in the next part the actual application of this. But you can literally, once you're focusing, say you have a subconscious belief that says, when I fail, it means I'm a failure. And there's a terrible feeling tied to that. And so you have anxiety of failing, you have fear of failing. And then when you fail, you do feel terrible. That is a belief system and an emotion tied to that belief system in your brain. You create the awareness of what that's about. Fear, that's why you're procrastinating, for example, or that's why you're not doing certain things. So you have that awareness, that recognition. You connect to that emotion, which releases epinephrine, and then you become very focused on this particular subconscious belief you have. You can connect to this. You're now in a neuroplastic state where you can even just say the words, this belief doesn't serve me. It's not true. The truth is, if I keep trying, I will learn and grow and get better and better until I have big success, so I need not fear failure. You can literally say that out loud when you are in this state where epinephrine's released, acetylcholine's released. it'll do it. The best and easiest way to do it is just follow the practice we have on my Skool platform, Mind Chrysalis on the Skool platform. Follow that course. It'll show you. It will create that neuroplastic state, and then you just follow the audio, and it's an active process. You have to do what's telling you to do, but it'll actually make these changes, and it'll be releasing these chemicals in your brain, having this intense, focused, and emotional experience in order to make these big changes like that. There's hard science behind this. So let's find out a little bit more about this neuroplastic process where you make big changes. And so up to this point, we've kind of talked about how intense emotionality can lead to epinephrine release, which is one of the 2 neurochemicals that need to be released to create a neuroplastic state and big instant change. So now we're going to let Dr. Huberman explain a little bit more about how acetylcholine actually affects our ability to focus on something, what that mechanic's all about. Now, he's going to talk about his bulldog here, Costello. Costello actually in this clip is sleeping right behind him. So if you listen closely, every now and then you kind of hear a faint snore. That's Costello. That's what he's talking about. It's kind of cute, but it's a good example here he's going to expand on in relation to acetylcholine and focus. Here we
But
go.
when I pay attention to something, like if I really hone in on Costello's snoring, I create a cone of attention. And what that cone of attention reflects is that acetylcholine is now amplifying the signal of sounds that Costello is making with his snoring and essentially making that signal greater than all the signal around it. What we call signal to noise goes up. So as a viewer,
Recognition, alertness, focus, intense emotionality, intense focus will create a neuroplastic state. And there are specific neurochemicals involved, and they have a specific effect on what we are doing mentally with our minds. So when all these conditions are present and we're actually applying the science, the theory here, you can get some rapid, powerful, permanent rewiring of your brain. And don't just take my word for it. Dr. Huberman here is going to expand a bit on how powerful and quick this can actually be, and profound and deep. Here we go.
when you stimulate these 3 brain regions, locus coeruleus, the brainstem source of acetylcholine, and then the basal forebrain source of acetylcholine, when you have those 3 things, whatever you happen to be listening to, doing, or paying attention to, immediately in one trial takes over the representation of a particular area of the brain. You essentially get rapid, massive learning in one shot.
Boom. Are you using this tool? Do you see mental health professionals, counselors, life coaches using this tool? They're trying to counsel you and make changes in your brain, make realizations so that you'll change your behavior, the way you feel in certain situations, the way you think in certain situations. That's their goal. What I want to know is, why aren't they using this? The science is there. You heard what he said. Massive change, one shot, just like that. That's what we do. Why is no one else doing this in the mainstream? It doesn't make any sense. They are using outdated science. They're using slow methods that change your brain very slowly over a long period of time through repetition. Later on, Dr. Huberman is going to talk about how doing things over and over through repetition also can change your brain. It's a type of neuroplasticity, but it just takes so much longer. We're talking massive change, one shot. Why are practitioners, counselors, life coaches, etc., not using this more? The science is there, but we use it. Wait until you see the case studies. You're going to see people with massive change because we're meeting these exact conditions and we know what to change. And you can literally go in and change it. This is nuclear powered stuff, and you have a Stanford neuroscientist telling you about it. But one thing that you want to understand is this is not an easy passive process. It can be very powerful. It should be very powerful, but you are going to have that intense emotionality focus. It is a very active thing. So it's not something you can do listening like to subliminal tapes while you sleep, for example. And Dr. Huberman's going to talk more about how intense and active a process this is. Here we go.
That if you get these three things, if you can access these three things of epinephrine, acetylcholine from these two sources, not only will the nervous system change, it has to change. It absolutely will change. And that is the most important thing for people to understand if they want to change their brain. You cannot just passively experience things. And repetition can be important, but the way to use repetition to change your brain is fundamentally different. So now let's
repetition. You can get in this neuroplastic state and use repetition to boot. That's great. I do that sometimes. We're talking about plasticity, and it's not a passive listening process. A lot of my clients are tired after this session for that reason, because we're doing a lot of hard work. But man, the massive change is so permanent change, so worth it. Big upgrade. It kind of a little bit reminds me of the Matrix, you know, when they just have these upgrades. It takes longer than that. It's not quite like that, but yeah. Anyways, so here's the last piece of puzzle to be put in place, at least as far as the theory and the science goes.
Adulthood is to engage alertness, engage focus, and then to engage non-sleep deep rest and deep sleep while you're in your typical bout of sleep.
Okay, so that's the final one. So here are the steps. You create an awareness. It's not automatic. A lot of times people aren't even aware why they do what they do. So you have to be aware if you want to change behaviors, emotions, fears, get rid of it, anxiety, get rid of it, emotions that aren't serving you, holding you back, limiting beliefs, habits, whatever it is. First, you really need to have an awareness of what is in your subconscious that's causing that, because that's the root. Subconscious programs, just Google it. What percent of our behavior is subconscious? 95%. You'll see articles from Auburn University, from Harvard, all these other scientific articles. You just Google it. So we need to be aware what is in your subconscious mind that needs to be changed. That's the first one. Second one, alertness, epinephrine, which is epinephrine release. Now, the thing with, we're going to talk about how hypnosis creates a superneuroplastic state. By the way, Dr. Huberman, in the next part of this video series, he talks about how hypnosis specifically creates accelerated, or what I call a superneuroplastic state. He's a big fan of it. We'll have excerpts from another Stanford psychiatrist who's on the chair of a couple boards at Stanford. He's been there for decades. He's huge on hypnosis. So we'll listen to him too and see what he has. But it's awareness, it's intense emotionality leads to more epinephrine release in your brain. That's one of the two neurochemicals you need. And then you focus on the subconscious program, belief systems, painful emotion, etc., that you want to change. That'll cause acetylcholine release. Now your brain's neuroplastic. Now you literally go in and say, I don't like this belief. I don't like this program. Get it out. You're going to use some techniques that your subconscious mind naturally understands. But like I said, you can even say out loud while you're focusing on this subconscious program and this intense emotional experience, etc. You can literally say, this doesn't serve me. This belief isn't true. I'm sending it away. I'm letting it go. And here is the truth. And then you literally put a new program in. That is one of the things you can do, but it is an active process. And then that's where the change takes place. But I would say, to complete it, you need a deep sleep or non-sleep deep rest. And when you're doing that, it sort of consolidates things. It reinforces the new neuronal wirings, strengthens those neurons. So that's the last component. Interestingly enough, hypnosis combines non-sleep deep rest into the session. So you still want to get a good night's sleep, but that step is actually present all at once with all the other steps in the hypnosis process. So if you make it that intense experience, you'll have this massive change. And wait till you guys see the case studies. But if you don't want to wait for the case studies, they're in later parts of this 4-part series, you can go on my YouTube channel right now, Ryan Fowler SOS, click on the video section. There's 24 client interviews where they talk about massive changes, massive permanent changes that change your life. People doubling their income, getting rid of procrastination, letting lifelong anger and hate go just like that, fear of failure, getting rid of it, etc., etc. It's all there. We've done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. The reason I am going after what Dr. Huberman says here is to show you this is not woo-woo. This is possible. There's hard science behind it. Dr. Huberman knows about this. Other neuroscientists know about this. Other certain psychologists, are in the know about this. The science is out there, but it's not being practiced. Later on, we'll go into the why. But the purpose today is to let you know this is real and the science is out there that confirms that you can have massive, rapid, permanent change to your subconscious belief systems or other parts of your brain that you want to change. If the right conditions are there, you can do it in one shot. So that's our presentation for today. Thanks for sticking with us on this. You don't have to wait till the other parts of this presentation come out, which will be coming out, in the next 2-3 weeks. You can get started, theskool.com, right there. Go there right now. Try it out. There's a free 6-part self-hypnosis course that actually helps a lot of people out. I have people overcoming procrastination, losing weight, free program right there. Try it for yourself. Watch the video interviews, watch the testimonials. This is real, and I'm dedicated to bringing this to the world to improve your life like it's improved mine. Thanks for watching.